share with you, I guess, some information about canvassing. And so I won't read that, I'll read what my notes say and then add my own comments. Canvassing should help you know as much as possible about voting intentions, so the voters' intentions. The campaign uses this information to build an existing support and to convince undecided voters to vote for you on election day, which means you kind of keep track as you go by doors and you you have a sense of feeling of what the people might support you or might not, or you can actually ask them. Keep track of that. Keep track of who you've gone to see, who was away, who was not, and those that you think are your supporters, put an X down. It's always good because you might want to go back to them to make sure they are going out to the polls. You also need to identify supporters and the undecided in the ward in order to encourage them to vote for you. And determining sign locations, that's what, I'm reading the wrong thing here, but that's okay. The undecided voters here are more likely to vote for someone who has taken the time to meet with them, which means knocking on those doors. And if you can get back to them, it is good. I know it takes a little, we talked about how much time that takes, but I find that that's very useful sometimes, especially in areas where they haven't been so receptive or that nobody's been home. But canvassing is also time consuming, as they say, so it's something that you want to do right. I always start my knocking on doors usually in May, and that gives me enough time to get around to everybody in the ward and sometimes to get through the night there again. Anyway, the goal is really to canvass every house. And you need to, and that is, you've got a large ward, that's difficult, but if not, and even if you do, try to do that. People like to see you. People like to shake your hand. It's a really good thing. So the next one. Decisions about resource allocation are based on your campaign's assessment of its strong and weak polls. To do this, two things are needed. A poll-by-poll results from the last election and previous elections if possible, as well as accompanying poll maps for the ward. What my husband does is he's good at the math and the statistics and stuff. He always goes and he looks at the polls, and he actually, now over the last few elections, we have a continuum, but you can kind of look at that, and he actually does a statistical analysis to see, where you need to go and where you really need to work and what happened that last election. Did they not support you, or did they not support another candidate? It gives you, though, a lot of information as to where to concentrate your efforts. As it says, there is no consensus on the best way to rank polls. The method matters less than the fact that your campaign is evaluating likely areas of support and setting priorities for your canvass. But again, my husband does that, just likes to do that, and I find it very helpful, just so that you know kind of where things are at. So when canvassing, it says here, you must ask, how are you going to vote? And you need to look the voters straight in the face and the eyes and says, can I count on your support on election day? That, I know, in the beginning for me was like a really difficult thing to do. And I still don't, I judge it, but what I do, rather than saying that, I just say, shake their hand and I say, well, I hope I have your support. So sometimes you can kind of figure out, say yes, or, but I did personally have difficulty saying, are you going to vote for me? And don't pressure voters if they're not certain which way or who they will support. But you have to ask, or at least the way I do it, I guess. I'm looking for your support, or I hope I have your support as you leave in the door and shake hands. So we have here now the telephone canvass. And that, of course, supplements door-to-door, but it certainly doesn't replace it. And as it says here, the telephone canvass will fill the gaps from the door-to-door canvass. So actually, if you haven't if people haven't been home, maybe in a lot of places, you could then try to phone them instead, or as an alternative to try and reach them. It can also, though, in phoning, it can verify the results of your door-to-door canvass. It's another way of talking to people, and it can firm up possible supporters, their support, and sometimes it persuades undecided voters, because not everybody's always so comfortable meeting somebody face to face. or they're not home. But as I said, I usually do not do the telephone canvas because it takes a long time, and I've always found it difficult to get the phone numbers of all the people in my ward. That's, you know, you have to kind of have those phone numbers so you know who you would be calling. Also, canvassing, or the telephone canvas, as it says here, is not slowed down by bad weather. Bad weather does happen. Bring your raincoats, your gumboots when you're out there, because it's important to be out as often and as long as you can. I find that it's, you only have so much time in that campaign, and you need to hit every door. So if it's not a blizzard, try to get out there. And also, it can also be done by volunteers who are less mobile. That's the telephone canvas, of course, and that engages people in your campaign, and it engages people with you and supports. So that's also good if there's other people helping with that. And it says some households, for example, rural communities, it's easier to canvass by telephone. And my colleagues in the county, that they do a lot of telephone canvassing because it is, you have to drive your car from one farm to the next. And so processing the canvass results, well, when the last canvass has been completed and it's been transferred onto the master list, it should be printed for use on election day. That list of canvassing and the people that you have gone to. And when I go canvassing, the question I do ask, will you take a sign? That is very important to do. It's not difficult. People will say, well, no, I don't take signs. A lot of people don't. But that's the way to get your sign locations, because don't kid yourself, those are gold. They're hard to get. Over the years, I've built that list of sign locations that I have. Generally, they take them back, but to get a sign location is difficult. A lot of people don't want them, and it's a hard thing to do, but I always ask at the end of a meeting, would you take a sign? So I think I'm done.